Thank you. Now, first of all, I want to thank you, Anselmo, for inviting me and Daniel to be at this extraordinary anniversary event. It is really an honor to be here. Now, yesterday, I was treated to a delicious lunch at CasaEsperanza, where Anselmo and Daniel teased me endlessly for eating too much. I had a little milanesa, some pork chops, a few taquitos, arroz. Apparently, I don't know if you guys can see, I'm pregnant. And these guys don't understand the concept of eating for two. You know, my husband says that the best part about having kids is making them. And I say that the best part about being pregnant is eating for two. So Anselmo, keep that in mind. After lunch, Anselmo took us on an extensive tour of this amazing facility and all the services that CasaEsperanza provides, and it really was truly impressive. This facility, first of all, is impeccably clean, and throughout our tour, we saw teachers tenderly rocking babies. We saw children playing happily, and because it was nap time, we saw so many beautiful little angels sleeping cozily under the watchful eye of trained, loving professionals. As a mother, I can tell you that nothing is more important than knowing that when you can't be there with your kids, that they are in the safe care of an adult that loves them and cares for them. That kind of peace of mind it's simply priceless. And that invaluable service alone makes CasaEsperanza a vital lifeline to the families and the parents in this community. Now, no one knows the importance of meaningful community service better than my boss and our keynote speaker, Daniel Garza. When Daniel was a child and his parents went to work in the fields picking crops, Daniel's parents were able to leave him in the care of a Head Start program for migrant children until they returned home from the fields. Daniel understands that there is a role for government to help those at the bottom. And like the organization he founded, the Libre Initiative, he supports programs that help children and empowers families to rise out of their poverty. At the same time, it is his experience with poverty that informs his healthy skepticism of those government programs that purport to help, but instead cause people to fall into cycles of dependency and despair. Daniel's story is an American story. It's the story of hard work, of opportunity, of second chances, and big dreams. Daniel went from working in the fields picking crops with his family to working for a congressman, later to representing his community as a city councilman, and then all the way to the White House, where he first served as Deputy Director of External and Intergovernmental Affairs in the Office of the Secretary of the Department of Interior. And later, in 2004, was appointed to be the Associate Director of the Office of Public Liaison. In 2006, he went from politics into print as president of Televisa's Hispanic Poder Group, overseeing editorial, commercial, and promotions for publications like Hispanic Trends, Poder, and Tu Dinero. Daniel later moved to television, where he was co-producer and host of Univision's Agenda Washington, a weekly Spanish-language news talk show covering state, economic, political, and social issues important to the Hispanic community. Today, Daniel is the founder and executive director of the Libre Initiative, an organization that is dedicated to empowering Hispanics to prosper and to achieve the American dream on their own terms. Daniel has never forgotten where his roots are, and his first-hand knowledge of the plight of the immigrant has made him a credible and trusted advocate for the Hispanic community. Through Libre, he has continued his work fighting for policies that help Hispanics and all Americans prosper, and informing our community of the benefits of self-reliance, constitutionally limited government, property rights, rule of law, a sound money supply, free enterprise, and economic freedom. I am proud to call Daniel my friend, and on a personal note, at a time when a lot of leaders are out there giving a lot of lip service to helping women advance, Daniel is a person who walks the walk. Daniel's chief of staff happens to be a woman, and a little over a year ago, he hired a mother of 6 to be the national spokesperson for the Libre Initiative. And he has given me the trust and the flexibility to do both my job as national spokesperson at Libre and my job as a mother, and for that I am deeply indebted to him. In December, I nervously called Daniel to tell him that I was pregnant yet again. And the conversation he had with me was about how he could keep me on. And so, along with being a champion of Hispanics and all freedom-loving people, I can tell you firsthand that he is a champion of women and of families, and it is my very, very, very honor to proudly introduce you to Daniel Garza.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Actually, hiring you is more of a reflection on me than it is on you. She's been amazing. I want to thank Anselmo Villarreal for the privilege and the high honor to be in front of you folks today, to give me the opportunity in such an important event to mark an annual milestone about the great work and achievements of CasaEsperanza and to be the keynote. I'm telling you, I accept it humbly. I also want to discuss a little bit about my own story. I want to be respectful of the time, so I'll try to be quick. My parents, Alain and Melissa Garza, from a small town in northern Mexico. Anselmo knows where the region is, it's Neonense. My parents are from Garza González, Nuevo León, Mexico, which is in the north, near Monterrey, Mexico. And back when they married, in the early 60s, they saw America, where they were going to make their life, where they were going to improve their lot in life and by extension, improve the lives of their children. And I always like to quote Woody Guthrie, who wrote a song about Tom Joad and the principal character in The Grapes of Wrath. In the song, Tom Joad, there's the stanza that says, "And they came to the mountaintop, and it looked like the promised land. A rich green valley with a river running through it. There was work for every single hand," they thought. There was work for every single hand. And that's how my parents saw America, the promised land. And I was born in California. They came as farm workers, and they worked hard. It was, to quote another author, the best of times, and it was the worst of times. Growing up a farm worker, well, there's famine, and we traveled in bunches, in convoys, from Nebraska to Washington State, California, following the crop seasons. And there was always that stability of family and that closeness and that depending on each other, and with the cousins and things. And so we looked out for each other. But being a farm worker also is hard work, and you work in the elements, and you work for cheap, and you're not, very well regarded. And the work you do is not very well regarded, frankly. And I grew up in that. I grew up seeing how, my parents were treated at times. Some were good bosses and some were bad bosses. Father told the kids of St. Anthony's School, where Zeus is running just an amazing program, and how well behaved those kids are. It's almost scary. But I was telling them that my father got fired for asking for a raise once. And it's just sort of that mistreatment that they would get. It was tough times. And if you're not careful, that mistreatment that you would see with your own eyes, being a child of a farm worker, could jade one. Could, I think, really send you down the wrong path and think that everybody's like that. And then you use it as an excuse not to achieve, not to persevere, not to overcome the obstacles. But I saw how my father and my mother were resilient. How they took the blows and they rolled with it. It's the American story that they come here to work hard. And I didn't know it at the time, but my parents were working and they were saving money. They were putting away money. And they had a vision, like Dad had a vision. And he started buying up properties in Washington State and selling them. The market was good. The real estate market was trending up. He took his life savings and he risked it in a small business. Borrowed from family and over-leveraged himself. Probably did what he shouldn't have done and did what other Americans before him had done. He took a risk. He took a shot. Access to the free market. And it was that decision that my father did that put us on a path right up to the middle class and then some. And I saw with my own eyes, how Dad had overcome so many obstacles and so many barriers. And I learned from him nobility, character, discipline, perseverance. And the kind of character that they're developing here at CasaEsperanza. I'm just so impressed by that son. And the kids at St. Anthony's school system, just how persistent they are with developing character. Folks, there's such an absence of that across the country in our public school system. And to create, I think, the kind of individuals, who are just being set up to succeed is so encouraging to see and so motivating. I tip my hat. Look, I was able to go off to college and do much better. Just right in line with the vision of my father and the aspirations that he had for us. And I got on this crazy ride where, Gracia was saying, I wound up working for George W. Bush at the White House as an associate director of the Office of Public Liaison. And it was my job at the time to put together events for the president to promote his agenda for the Hispanic community. 50 million Hispanics, I was the one guy advocating on their behalf to the president in the Oval Office. Imagine what kind of responsibility that was. And this is coming from a farm worker. I never worked harder in my life than my time at the White House. Those 3 years. It exhausted me. And I just had no clue. And seeing it from the inside was something to behold. I left fulfilled. Fulfilled because of the great things we got to do. One of the things that I think that I'm just so proud of, it had come to my attention and I received a phone call that, hey, look, Daniel, there's this family in Southern California whose parents, back in 1943, had tried to enroll them in school and were told no. And the father sued the state of California because they were migrant farm workers and they could not go to a white school in Westminster, California. I think it'd just be great if you could invite them. They've never been to the White House. Their children, 60 years later. And I said, what are you telling me? He says that in 1942 there was white and Hispanic schools. He says, yeah. And so I researched it, and it was a case called Mendez versus Westminster. I don't know if any of you folks have heard of this case, but it turns out Mendez versus Westminster was the precursor to Brown versus the Board of Education. Gonzalo and Felicitas Mendez tried to enroll their kids, and they had actually bought a farm from a Japanese family in 1942 who had been interned in a concentration camp during World War II because they were Japanese, and they were caretaking the farm while they were interned, the Japanese family. And it was during that time that he, Gonzalo took his kids to the school, Silvia and Gonzalo Mendez, their kids, and they were rejected because they were Hispanic. Here's the interesting thing. Gonzalo started, and he was going to take it. So he worked hard, and for about a year and a half, he accumulated capital. And he took that capital, and he took his life savings, And he said, I'm not going to take this. My children deserve a better education. And they deserve the best school that I can get for them. So he took the case, and the lawyer that represented him was Thurgood Marshall, who took the case against California, and the governor of California was Earl Warren. And so I was like, wow, this is amazing. And so I took it to Alberto Gonzalez, who at the time was general counsel to the White House. I said, Alberto, look, this is the case. I really not only want to invite them to the White House, because the kids are still alive, you know, the litigants in the case. The parents had then passed away. I said, but I want the president to recognize their parents for the courage, for what they did for their children, and that they were not going to take it. And Gonzalo and Alberto said, you know, let me do my team on it, man, and I'll get back to you. Alberto called me 2 days later and says, it's legit. This is the precursor to Brown versus Board of Education. And not only that, man, they win the case, and the state of California was desegregated because of Mendez versus Westminster, and was used as the principal case in making, you know, the case for Kansas versus Board of Education. So I said, of course, let's invite them. I talked to the speechwriters, and the president agreed that this recognition was overdue. And I invited the 4 children who were still alive, and they showed up at the White House the day of the Hispanic Heritage event that I had coordinated on behalf of the president. And I brought the First Lady in with the president, and I introduced them to the family in the Red Room before we stepped into the state room. And I said, Mr. President, this is Sylvia and Gonzalo, the child litigants in the case of Mendez versus Westminster that you'll be recognizing today. I got to tell you, I almost broke down crying because Sylvia, the child, the president opened up his arms and she just dove into his arms and she bawled like a little child for about 5 minutes in the president's arms and you know, covered by the First Lady. I was just so proud that I could give them that moment. You know, they walked into the West Wing, or into the state room, and the president gave the speech, and you can look it up, and it's all there. And the president talks about this case, and how then Earl Warren had become Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and Thurgood Marshall was also a justice now that made it to the Supreme Court when they litigated Brown versus Board of Education. It's an amazing set of events, and the president, of course, asked Sylvia and Gonzalo to stand up on behalf of their parents and receive the long overdue recognition that they deserve. You know, I was asked by the kids at St. Anthony's today, who's your Hispanic hero? What Hispanic do you admire the most? And I told them honestly, it's my parents. It's your parents. It's you people here today who are risking everything, who sacrifice everything, who save, who put away because you want your children to do better, and you wake up every day and you go through the drudgery of life and the routine, and you work hard because you want a better life for them. Those are my heroes. Look, the Cesar Chavez's and the Sonia Sotomayor's, with all due respect to Cesar Chavez and Sonia Sotomayor and all these people that have accomplished great things, they'll get, you know, their respect and I think, you know, the praises of the world around them. But I just want children to recognize the value of their parents, what the sacrifices that their parents make. Undocumented citizens, folks who are seeking opportunity and who take advantage of that. And that's why I leave it, you know, we do as much as we can to have an honest discussion about what are those policies that are generating prosperity in America, and what are those policies that are inducing dependency or generating poverty. And let's talk about how we can have more of this and less of that, without politics and without ideologies or whatever. But let's get, you know, to a position where, you know, what we can do is not, you know, push an agenda where it's redistribution of earned income, but redistribution of knowledge and opportunity for our kids. Because at the end of the day, that's really what everybody wants. It's a shot at making an equal playing field, an equality of opportunities, no matter who you are. You know, whatever you may think of Senator Ted Cruz, he got it right. He said America is still a country where anybody with nothing can achieve anything. And we have to fight for it. We have to defend those liberties. I think it's one of those things where it is so critical that as a country we unite around that, around the opportunities that we can give to our children. Condoleezza Rice spoke, and I'll end with this. During my time at the White House, I got to listen to Condoleezza Rice. She was the National Security Advisor at the time before she became Secretary of Defense. But she was addressing the graduating class of Vanderbilt University. And I listened to her, and she has something so powerful to say that stayed with me. And I want to share it with you today. And I'm going to quote her verbatim because I don't want to mess it up. She said, "You are here because you worked hard. You are here because you value education. But let's be very clear. Merit alone did not see you to this day. There are many people in this country, many from your hometown, who are just as intelligent, just as hardworking, and just as deserving. But for whatever reason, they didn't have that one teacher that inspired them, or parents who made it possible, and they didn't get the breaks that you got. Don't ever forget that when you leave here. Don't ever forget that just because you got something, it meant that you deserved it. And don't ever forget that just because you didn't get something, it meant that you didn't deserve it." And I think there are so many deserving children who sacrifice so much, who work hard, who are facing barriers and obstacles. I missed so much school as a farm worker. It's not even funny. I couldn't use that as an excuse. Life is going to come at you, and you have to face it. And it's people like Anselmo who are working hard to have institutions like CasaEsperanza that can prepare them for whatever comes at them in life, that can give them that character, that they can face, I think, those obstacles. Similar to, they're going to be different from my obstacles. They're going to be different from, the challenges that you had. Every one of you in this room faced and encountered obstacles. But you had the parents, you had the teacher, you had that somebody who I think developed your character, developed, I think, your esa mentalidad, to face it. And I'm just so thrilled that you would invite me and that I could come and share some words with you, and I want to thank you so much. God bless.